Okay, sure. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jessica McNair, and tonight I speak to you as a graduate of New Hartford, a former 4th and 5th grade teacher at E.R. Hughes Elementary School, a former special education teacher at Miles Elementary School, a private tutor, a New Hartford resident, a parent of 2 young children, the co-founder of Opt Out CNY, a member of New York State Allies for Public Education, and a Bradley Elementary PTA member. I'd like to start by thanking you for your service to the community of New Hartford, and thank you for listening to the parents, teachers, and community members that have gathered here this evening. It's with sincerity and optimism that I speak to you. The dozens gathered before you are here for one reason, and it is a good one. They care deeply about the education that the children of our community receive, and they are committed to helping continue the tradition of excellence in our schools. For that, I want to thank those of you in attendance tonight. Without the support of our community, New Hartford Central Schools would not be the wonderful place that it is. It is truly refreshing and encouraging to see so many individuals here to support our schools. Thank you. Like many of you, I believe in hard work, and I hold high expectations for myself, my children, and my students. More than that, though, I believe in respect. When it comes to learning, regard for one's unique traits, abilities, and interests is crucial. Without it, true success cannot be achieved, no matter how high our expectations. In my various roles within our community, it has become abundantly clear that the New York State Education Department's Regents Reform agenda has dismissed and ignored the most essential element of education, respect for the learner. Over the past 2 years, I have witnessed a complete disregard for the very first dimension of learning, the connection to the student, an individual, a child with unique traits, gifts, and characteristics. You see so many here tonight because our district's moving forward with the reform agenda. However perfectly implemented, and with what was sure to be the best of intentions, our district continues to hide behind the premise of high expectations and opportunity for all, when reality is much different. The one-size-fits-all approach dictated by the reforms tied to the Common Core learning standards is actually widening the achievement gap, narrowing the curriculum, and causing complete disregard for accepted truths regarding child development. On a regular basis, I witness students who are anxious, frustrated, and demoralized. Tests with bubble sheets are sent home with my first grader. I'm asked to assist third graders with pages of test corrections. Corrections that must be made at home until perfection has been reached, because there is no time during regular instruction to help students meet with success before moving on. I am regularly approached by parents wondering how they can better help their child, how they can keep up with the rigid and fast-paced curriculum adopted by our school without having to sacrifice the time with family and extracurricular activities that are so very important to our children's well-being. Make no mistake, parents, myself included, want to work alongside teachers to support their sons and daughters in their academic endeavors. Not only a parent, I am also a New Hartford graduate. I am the legacy and testimony to the commitment of our educators that have a passion for education and academic excellence, and I can't help but wonder this. If we in New Hartford have always prided ourselves in educating students to meet with academic success, why are we choosing to conform to a Regents Reform agenda that has students, teachers, and parents questioning if we will meet those goals? When parents and teachers stop to consider the most important facet of education, the child, they intuitively know that there is no curriculum map, no arbitrary set of standards, and certainly no test that can define whether or not their child is successful. In fact, that's why you've received so many letters from parents stating their intent to refuse New York State exams this spring. Parents are all aware that there is absolutely no way to quantify that learning that takes place in these classrooms, on the soccer field, in the computer lab, during a student council meeting, or center stage in the jam pack. Our children are all unique. Our children are more than a test score, and yes, our children deserve appropriate expectations and opportunity to succeed both in and out of the classroom. But make no mistake, our children need not jump over a higher bar, better their score on the state exam, or correct their work to perfection to be successful. Our children need only to be respected to carry on the Spartan tradition of excellence. As Abigail Adams stated, learning is not attained by chance. It must be sought for with ardor and attended to with diligence. The community members before you are here because they recognize it is only with passion, due diligence and cooperation between all stakeholders, that all of our children will have the opportunity to grow, thrive, and realize their success within. We are thankful for the efforts made by our school district and your commitment to our children at the local level. Thank you. As a parent, educator, and PTA member, I ask you, members of the Board of Education, to please recognize the very sincere and real concerns you hear tonight with an open mind. I kindly request that after you've heard the perspectives of those in front of you, that you join us in conversation to broaden your understanding of the reform agenda and how it has and how it will impact our children. The people before you, including myself, are sincerely grateful for the service you provide to our community and look forward to working with you to advocate for children both at the local and state level. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board, and I'd like to do this. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you, Mrs. McNair.
Would anyone else like to address the board? First of all, my name is Amy Winter. I have 2 children here at Bradley Elementary School. And I would like to take a moment to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on my children's behalf about a topic that is very important to me, their education. I've been an elementary school teacher for the past 18 years, and I've quietly weathered many educational reforms and agendas, none as devastating as the implementation of the Common Core with its heavy emphasis on testing and its unsuitable curriculum. While I witness daily the frustrating and detrimental effects it has on the inner city population that I teach, my concern today is for my own small children here at Bradley Elementary. We all know the research and statistics behind the adverse effects the Common Core is having on children, teachers, and parents. However, I'm here today to focus on one particular aspect, the developmental inappropriateness of these standards and the effects it's having on our children. 10 years ago, I owned a quaint little house that I loved in South Utica. When I became pregnant, my husband and I made the decision to leave and move to New Hartford solely for the educational opportunities afforded by your district. Since then, God has blessed us with 2 wonderful, smart, and happy children. Until last year, my 3rd grade daughter loved school, and she excelled at it. She bounced out of bed each morning and happily bounded onto the bus. Last year, we began to see a change in her. She no longer wanted to go to school, and we started hearing things like, "I hate school," come out of her mouth. My son began kindergarten, and he was so eager to get on the bus with all the big kids on his first day. When he got home, he informed us he wasn't going back. School was no fun, and all they did was work all day. He too will tell you that he hates school, and he is only in kindergarten. He leaves for school each morning looking defeated and dejected, but he quietly does what he is told. At the end of last year, my 8-year-old daughter developed migraines in an 8-year-old. These headaches plague her throughout the school year, and yet miraculously, she never has a headache in the summer or over school breaks. And this year, on top of the migraines, my daughter began complaining of endless stomach aches every morning before school. This is accompanied by an hour of screaming, crying, and carrying on about not feeling good enough to go to school. She begs and pleads us to stay home. My husband and I start every work day battling a 9-year-old and forcing her to get on the bus. We leave our home upset and drained before we even begin our own work day. Once at school, she visits the nurse at least once every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times. I am getting constant phone calls from the school. I have missed 9 work days thus far to shuttle her to doctor's appointments to get to the bottom of these issues. After countless appointments with the pediatrician, the neurologist, along with x-rays, blood work, and finally an appointment with a pediatric GI specialist in Syracuse, we have found nothing wrong with her. After months of this pattern, we notice that the stomach aches only happen on school days. When the weekend comes, our happy-go-lucky, stress-free child returns. On Sunday nights, the pain makes a comeback. This makes me very angry. This is not a child who has ever had anxiety. At home, she is carefree and content. She does well academically, and she has lots of friends, but school is making her physically sick. And I fear I will have to go through this all over again in a few years with my son. I trusted this district with my most prized possessions, and you are failing them. Young children should not have to live like this. And in case you think this is an isolated case, you're dead wrong. The vast majority of my colleagues and friends have children who feel the same way. My neighbor's son is so stressed he is pulling his own hair out. The curriculum is not developmentally appropriate, and the pacing is ridiculous. I have watched my daughter complete multiplication division, and intricate fraction work in a matter of weeks. I have taught all of these over the years, and I can tell you that many weeks should be spent on each topic before rushing on to the next. I can also tell you that just a few years ago, I taught the same curriculum to 5th graders, not 3rd graders. Recently, my daughter brought home a math test on fractions that she failed. I spoke with the teacher only to find out the whole class failed. When an entire class fails, it is not the children's fault. The fault lies with either the teacher or the curriculum, and I can assure you that my daughter has a wonderful teacher. You are asking young children to conquer tasks that their brains are not developmentally ready to handle. Read the research of Piaget and see what age abstract thinking begins, and I assure you it is not 3rd grade. And what happens when you ask young children to complete tasks their brains aren't ready to do? Stress. I am a graduate of the New Hartford school system. I can honestly say my classmates and I were adequately prepared for college without the Common Core standards and excessive testing. Your previous system was not broken in my eyes. In fact, it was commendable. I'm afraid that by the time my children reach high school, they will be so burned out that they will not want anything to do with college. And these children are some of the smartest in their class. Now think about the learning disabled, or those who come from families where a parent cannot spend hours each night reinforcing the homework and studying with them. Instead of college-ready graduates, I'm afraid you will have more students dropping out, and you are turning out disenfranchised, disengaged students who are overwhelmed and feel they are nothing more than a test score. I'm not a person who's wildly political or bucks the system. I was taught to respect authority and do what you are told. You would never find me speaking at a board meeting in the past. But I'm so very sad and angry that my children are in school at this horrible time, and for them, I ask you to please look into the effects of these standards and all the over-testing they are subjected to. Accepting the reform agenda isn't enough. It needs to be scrapped together. Please stop hurting our children. Thank you for your time.
Highwood. I'm Louise's wife. I taught here for 38 years. I went to New Hartford. I'd say about 15 people in here are my students. I just came from the hospital. My father-in-law had a pacemaker put in, and I just ran in the elevator with a student, my first class. They're 58 years old. I hear from them on Facebook all the time. Many are doctors, lawyers, as I was very adequately prepared. I feel what I've heard, what this woman just said, I've heard too often. And we're supposed to be instilling a love for learning. I could say I did that. And we had high standards. But success breeds success. I'm a motivational speaker on self-image improvement. This is not self-image improvement. This is how to destroy. I'm not going to take a lot of time. I didn't prepare anything. I just wanted to make this statement because I think I have a valid point of view. Parent, teacher, alumnus, taxpayer. So with that, I will sit down.
Hi, excuse me. My name is Michelle Sanowski, and I am a mother of 2 wonderfully amazing girls. My oldest daughter spoke at a rally in the fall about how Common Core affected her. So tonight I'd like to give you a little insight on how it's changed my 8-year-old little daughter. First, I'd like you to know about my 3rd grader, Ella. She's funny, social, smart, eager to learn, and one of the most amazing and caring kids I know. She has food allergies, and every day I send her to school, I know that she's in an environment that will protect her from the foods that could potentially kill her. At the end of 1st grade, she came home from her last day of school, ready to take on the summer with excitement. I sat on the porch and looked at her report card with her. I remember looking and saying, 4s, all 4s. You got straight 4s, a perfect report card. So that whole summer, all she ever said to me was, yeah, but I'm the one that got all 4s. That summer was also the summer that we lost a very close friend to lung cancer, and she passed away. My sister, too, was diagnosed with lung cancer that summer. So later that summer, Ella and I were in the car driving. She was very quiet, sitting in the back seat. All of a sudden, her little boy says to me, Mom, do you think when Daddy gets home he could build me a lab? I said, a lab? What do you need a lab for? She said, you know, a lab, like where you build things. I said, again, what do you need a lab for? She said, well, I want to build a pill that will get rid of cancer. My heart stopped, and I think I stopped breathing for a second. My response to her was, you get good grades, you work really hard in school, and you will be able to rid cancer. I promise you that. So she takes on 2nd grade, eager to go, ready to start her year. But that year, she had trouble with the math, with the new math. I was trying so hard to help her with her frustration, but it was too much. She worked so hard and her grades just didn't show the time and energy that she was putting in. One day she came home, walked in the door, and just started to cry. I said, what's wrong? She said, well, Mommy, I don't think I'm smart anymore, and I won't need the lab anymore. I said to her, to my little girl, that don't worry about it, everything is going to be okay. We'll figure it all out. But to that little girl, 1s and 2s meant she was a failure. So I sent her to school every day knowing that she is protected from her allergies. But what is the school doing to protect her from the self-esteem hits that she takes every single day? Is the school going to offer a class to build my daughter back up? You want her to be college ready? Well, at the rate that she's going to give up on education altogether. Thank you.
My name is Monique Mo, and my son is in 3rd grade. I'm not good at this, so if I start shaking, I apologize up front. He no longer loves school. My husband made me use the word love, but his word is hate. He used to love it until he started 3rd grade. My husband and myself have always promoted learning as the key to a successful life, one that can be fulfilled in a variety of creative learning experiences. Every morning, and lately sometimes even at bedtime, he tells us how much he dislikes school. His word is hate. How much he wants to stay home and how much every day is so boring. Having said this, I would also like to state that this has absolutely nothing to do with his teacher, who has not been anything less than outstanding in our eyes, but more importantly in the eyes of my son. My son has good grades, not because of Common Core. He gets good grades because of who he is and what he is. He works hard at school and at home. He's not himself anymore. He's become a small, young, dutiful soldier that performs a task that's asked of him. Not because he likes to, but because he's told. And not because he loves or learning new things, but because he has to. That's what is being taught in school. That's the reason why his grades are good, because he fights for it. How long do you think this is all going to work for our kids? What has happened to imagination and creativity? It seemed to have died with the implementation of Common Core. Children no longer have a chance in the classroom to be creative, to learn while having some fun. The true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, it's imagination. Imagination is the preview of life's common attractions, said by Albert Einstein. Smart guy. Please don't take the child out of my child. He will be an adult soon enough. So no, he does not like school. He does not like school because it's hard. He dislikes it because Common Core has taken the love out of learning, out of the classroom. He's only 9 years old. How can I encourage him to continue to learn and further his education for the next 10 to 15 years when he's only allowed to study what is dictated by the state? Many of us, parents as well as teachers, have voiced our concerns over the Common Core curriculum. However, many have not, due to the fact that they feel intimidated by you, the district, other teachers, to do so without ramification. Students and parents both are worried that they will be taken off the honor list, that they will be forced to partake in ILS, and because they have seen and heard how those who have spoken out have gotten berated. How does that make you feel, that you silence someone's voice to intimidation? No one can deny the amount of concerns with the Common Core. Even if some of you still truly believe in the components of it, it should be crystal clear by now that many changes have to be made. What are you going to do? I'm not from here. I've been told you do not know how New Hartford works. They will not admit that a misguided course of action has been initiated because they, meaning the district, do not like to look bad in the eyes of others. The New Hartford School District has always been recognized as one of the best. Me too, had a nice cozy house in South Utica and I moved because of the education system. But even the best can make mistakes. But if the best alter their course of action to rectify the situation in the best interest of whom they represent, that's what makes the best even better. If they stay the course, they think that they will lose face, then they are not only fooling themselves, they are also attempting to fool the people that they represent, us, and the taxpayers.
Yeah.
And I, for one, will not be fooled. It is my belief that the district will, in fact, lose their elite status and become a district that follows instead of a district that has always led. I would like to see more transparency from the district, the Board of Education. We have voiced our concerns long enough, and I think it's time to make yourself available for some answers and discussion. I thank you for your time and hope to hear from you soon.
Good job.
Anybody else want to address the board?
I'm not as good as you speaking.
I'll say something. My daughter is 6 and is in first grade. She gives me a hard time about going to school on Fridays because of the test she has to take. I have a hard time believing you're not teaching to the state assessments because when I looked at my daughter's papers that she brings home every day, I see these sheets, English and math. You guys know these? Instead of testing 6-year-olds on grammar, can we give them a chance to write their own creative stories and have them learn grammar through their own writing? Research indicates that teaching students grammar within the context of their own writing is more effective. Perhaps then, kids will want to go to school on Fridays because they know there's not a 6-page test waiting for them. I'm also concerned the state testing is narrowing the curriculum. Math and reading are taught while science and social studies are pushed to the side. At a time when we should be nurturing the natural, curious minds of our young students, we are instead teaching them how to fill in bubbles and to worry about knowing the right answer. I want my daughter and her classmates to know that it is okay to make mistakes, that they are not stupid in math because they get a 2 or a 3. If we are giving our children developmentally inappropriate educational experiences starting in kindergarten, instead of being college and career ready, our children will never find their love of learning and will have no desire for higher education. Instead of building up these kids, you are failing them, and therefore making them feel like failures. These kids are still learning who they are and what they can become, but you insist on testing them and assigning them to numbers. What happened to teaching the whole child? Are you looking at the student's emotional, psychological, and educational well-being? Nowhere will you find that kids learn best through testing. Yet we are spending hours a week testing our students, which means hours of learning that's wasted. The overhaul of this curriculum is not based on any research and was not developed by educators. This should send up red flags. We need to think more critically before naively agreeing to an educational reform. Instead of implementing best practices, you have turned to unhealthy practices. I am asking you to start thinking critically, start asking questions, look at the research, look into the eyes of our students, and don't follow policies blindly, especially at the price of our children. New Hartford has some of the best teachers in the area, but instead of teaching, they are forced to test our students. It's a waste of talent. Our government and politicians are backpedaling with the implementation of the Common Core, but where were you to stop such harmful policies before they could even be implemented? You need to be advocating for our children instead of mindlessly following this misguided movement. I'd like us to go back to what research says is the best way kids learn, and for you to allow my 6-year-old to use her creativity and to develop her gifts in her own time. Thank you.
Anyone else address the board? Go ahead.
I don't really have anything prepared. Hi, my name's Kirsten B. My children go to Miles. I don't really have anything prepared, but recently I saw a letter from the principal at the Town of Webb Schools that was absolutely beautiful, and it spoke to everything that I think about when I think about this one-size-fits-all curriculum. And this letter basically said to these kids, this test is going to show us some things about you, but it will not show us everything. It will not show us where you excel in sports or music. It will not show us how you helped a neighbor or welcomed a new kid at school. This test will show us some things, but not everything. My daughter is not does not fit a cookie cutter approach. She needs more time. When she has more time, she does beautifully. But that's the thing about these kids. They're all individuals. They all have different strengths and weaknesses, and we need to work towards their strengths. Fix their weaknesses, build their strengths, and let them be who they are, individuals.
Anyone else? Thank you for being here to listen to us. And thank everyone also for being here. My name is Pamela C. I'm a parent of a fourth grader at Miles Elementary School. I'm here along with everyone else because I'm concerned about the Regents reform agenda and really what's happening right now in our school today. I've spoken with Mr. Condro about it. He's been very gracious and spent a lot of time speaking to me, answering my questions. And I do, however, want to share my concerns with all of you. Right now, I'm concerned about the double math being taught throughout the district in preparation for the state exams. I'm concerned about the extra burden on our teachers. I'm concerned about the extra burden it's placing on our children and exactly how they are handling it. Since the pace of math is already moving at the speed of light. My son said to me, they have taken away the only chance for our social working time, and it's driving me absolutely crazy. So I spoke to Mr. Condro about this, and he said that once it's over, the teachers will be allowed to resume the social studies and the science and review the double topics in math if the teachers chose to, or slow down the remaining topics. I said to Mr. Condro, that's great, but please come and sit at the dinner table and explain to my fourth grader who is eager, who wants to get his hands dirty, just explain to him how this could be possible, that he has to sit for another 40 to 45 minutes a day in his chair. It's killing him. He's very passionate, so, you know, I try to smooth things over as best I can, and, you know, there are days when it just doesn't happen. There's meltdown after emotional meltdown. I also want to know how, with this additional math, how much do you think that they are absorbing? They're already being bombarded. You know, some children, when they get overwhelmed, they completely shut down. That learning process just stops. At various meetings over the last couple of years, I've been told that, you know, state testing doesn't really play a huge role here in New Hartford. So I need to understand the urgency for this double math that's going on right now. I want to know if the teachers had input. I want to know what they said. Because I believe that the individual teacher working in these classrooms know what's best for these children. So I'm concerned that our district is becoming more concerned about state test exams than teaching authentic learning. I really feel that it's becoming a problem. And as a parent and as a member of the parent-teacher task force, you know, I look forward to working with all of you personally so we can continue to discuss these things and, you know, come up with some solutions and some answers. Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else?
Hello, my name is Tracy M. I think you recognize me from before. I have two daughters in 8th and 5th grade. I'm here primarily to talk to you about my youngest daughter today. It's more of a personal letter. To begin, please know that I really appreciate your recent efforts to reduce testing. Thank you. This certainly will help and is a step in the right direction. My daughter Allison is typically a laid-back, no worries, happy little girl. However, this year we have seen a change. The light has gone out of her eyes. She is more quiet and subdued. She has had stomach aches and headaches. Every day lately she tells me she does not want to go to school. The only thing she is happy about is seeing her teacher. She loves her and this keeps her going. Otherwise, Allison finds school long and boring. She complains that all they do are tests or prepare for tests. She recently came home with papers about stress. One question on the sheet asked, "What is stressful to you?" My daughter had replied with one word, school. This stress is now apparent even in her extracurricular activities. Allison dances and usually loves it. However, lately she has begun to lose some of her enjoyment of it. Her dance teacher has been noticing that she is more anxious and tense in class. In a conversation before Christmas, she asked Allison what she wanted for Christmas, and Allison told her she wanted a 4 on her ELA test. Her dance teacher was astounded. New Hartford is a great school district, and we want it to stay that way. Please, as a board, continue to listen. We need the excessive testing and reliance on test scores to stop. This is hurting our children. As a community, we need to put the children's needs first. They are the future, and they need all of us together to do what is right for them. I will end with a quote I came across one day, written by Jeannie Fulbright, who is a mother, author, and speaker. If the purpose of learning is to score well on a test, we've lost sight of the real reason for learning. Thank you for your time.
The price you pay for getting the only soft chair in the room is you get trapped. Oh, look at it, they're going to untrap me. That chair's reserved. I got it for you. Sneezik, I thought you had my walker. Louise, thank you for coming. It's nice not to be the oldest person in the room.
Keep it up.
My name is George Witten. It's a treat to be here. I want you to know that not every Board of Education would allow this. So a lot of boards, I think, would turn the public off, and it's to your credit you're letting people talk. I was a teacher here at New Hartford from 1974.
69.
69, okay. Until 2009. When you dangled money in front of me and made me leave. At my retirement gathering, I remember saying that for me, the teaching profession was rarely a job, but rather a calling. I still feel that way, which is why I continue to teach as an adjunct up at SUNY IT. I want the younger people here this evening, which is everybody except Louise and I, to be able to say the same thing when they retire. I don't come this evening as an expert on the Common Core curriculum. In fact, I'm looking forward to this presentation. What I know of the Common Core is what I read in local, national, and yes, the union newspapers. I also hear from former colleagues. I also talk to parents. So my knowledge base on the topic is not immense, but I do know, I think I know, what good teaching looks like, and that is what I'd like to share with you briefly. When I began teaching in 1974, there was no mentoring. I remember being told by my principal, Mr. Van Slyke, I don't want to see you receive any phone calls saying kids can't learn in Mr. Witten's class. Some of you know Mr. Van Slyke. I gulped. I recall as a 22-year-old fresh from college that my mentoring came in informal ways. I looked around the staff and attempted to emulate the older teachers who I quickly came to admire. From English teacher Andy Forrest, sorry Louise, I learned about tough standards. From my history department chair Ed Bogan, I learned to ask students on Friday afternoon what they were going to do this weekend, and then to ask them on Monday how it went. Ed also suggested going to athletic contests and plays. He said if you go to one, they'll think you went to all of them. By having lunch with Roz Buckingham each day, I learned what mattered and what didn't matter in a very practical way. From English teacher John McNair, I learned about creativity in the classroom. From Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Bob Hughes, I learned about individualizing instruction. From the two Dotties, Wolf and Roberts, the high school secretaries, I learned that everyone contributed to the educational process who was in the building. And from head custodian Bill Hinman, before there were assistant superintendents of buildings and grounds, from head custodian Bill Hinman, I learned that it's okay for the head guy to push a dust mop up and down the hall during classes. And finally, there was a 7th grade social studies teacher by the name of Halbert Heitman. Bud used to say each September that he would love for the district to assign him 30 students, give him a bus, and he would then say, I'll see you in June. Bud was famous for conducting an interdisciplinary 7th grade archaeological dig. Any student who ever did it remembers it. It was fun, it was educational, I recall one student with delight finding an electric fence and frying an ant. It was learning. And yes, there was student assessment through activities, essays, and dare I say, tests. But tests were not the driving force of instruction. Teachers followed a curriculum, each in their own way. I remember Annie's big black curriculum book. Each instructor had strengths and weaknesses. Some were tough graders, others not so tough. Neither teachers nor students were placed into one-size-fits-all containers. I have a little friend who's 7 years old at my church. And the little boy's name is Gavin, and this past Sunday, Gavin gave me a thank you note because I had given him a card on his 7th birthday. And the note, which I didn't bring up, but it's backed by Mr. Sneezik back there, said, "George, thank you for the $5 bill and card. I'm going to put it toward Legos. I love Legos." From Gavin. There's a self-portrait of Gavin playing with Legos. Oh, there's the dry. Gavin is the yellow. He's the yellow guy with the arms that look like bananas, and he's playing with his Legos. New Hartford has been blessed throughout its history by a supportive community, outstanding parents, outstanding teachers, administrators, and support staff. My fear from what I've read and heard is that the Common Core will clip the wings of many outstanding educators and many outstanding young learners. I hope I'm wrong. When we test, we don't teach. I think 7-year-olds like Gavin need to be playing and dreaming and thinking about their Legos, where a lot of learning will take place. More learning may take place there than in prepping for standardized tests. Thanks for your time.
I just want to make a statement. It takes courage for all of you to come forward and let us know about your concerns. And I know as one board member, I'm listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think all of you know me. Tom Sneezik. I'm a teacher here at New Hartford, English teacher. I have been for 18 years. I know I can't believe it either. It almost seems surreal. And I love it coming to work every day and teaching the kids that I teach, coaching golf here, working with Model UN kids as I do, and just being part of the community. I moved from Vernon, my wife and I did, and we moved because we wanted to be part of a better place, and New Hartford was that emulation for us to be in somewhere that was better than everybody else. And as a VBS alum, I condemned New Hartford when I was growing up because they were better at everything, you know, but now I know why, because we do have a support community as I look out here and see, and it's amazing to see that. But I'm not here to speak as a parent right now. I'm not here to speak as a teacher. I'm here to speak as a person who has worked for the New York State Education Department for the last 15 years as a consultant. And I can say, and what I want to speak to are my colleagues, my friends down at the State Education Department who have been shunned, who have been dismissed, and who have been put in their place for what they believe to be right and what they believe is the right course of action for children. And because of a few individuals at the State Education Department who are in charge, including the Board of Regents, Dr. King himself, and also Merrill Tisch, they have put these people in their place, have removed them from important positions at the State Education Department in assessment and also in the ELA portion in which I worked. Good people who knew what they were doing and what they wanted to do for kids. And I look at this board, and I've been staring at it ever since the presentations have started, and I've kind of chuckled, because we've looked at a comparison of 2005 and the Common Core. There really is no difference. But what is the big difference here is the fact that how we have implemented it, not New Hartford, but how the state has implemented it, how the United States has implemented this, and it's an absolute joke in what's happened in the United States and in New York State. And I'll give you a case in point. It's owned by big business. I have some examples here. My daughter, who I always love coming home to help her out with work, I'm an English teacher, keep that in mind, please. Suffixes, school, ly, nes. It's a crossword puzzle. I love crossword puzzles. I do them, you know, on the weekends. Not during the school day, of course. But this is my favorite one. It has great clues, you know, vocabulary. And I'm sorry I don't have enough for all of you. And it asks you across. 1, alert. 5, loudly. 8, a decision made together. 9, very pleasing. Great, they got the word bank right here, it's perfect. I just wish they actually put the numbers of where across and down went. These are the mistakes that are made constantly in our children's work that is unacceptable, in my opinion. And why they struggle, and why they come home, and why they think they're dumb, and why they think they can't do it. And this is unacceptable. Pearson, one of my favorite companies. I worked for Pearson for 13 years. I think they're great people, excellent people. Here is some of the stuff that they come out with in terms of math problems. I wish I knew what they were talking about in these math problems. And this is a struggle. These are just 2 examples. I can get multiple more examples of the work that's coming home, and that we're sitting there for hours working with our children, working with my kids especially. 6 people can be seated at a table. If 2 tables are put together, 10 people can be seated. How many tables are needed to make a long table? That will seat 22 people. Who cares? As long as we're all comfortable and together as a family, who cares? That's my point. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but these are the questions that I feel are just not conducive to what Common Core is asking us to do. I have no problems with higher standards. I have no problems with wanting our kids to achieve at a higher level. But let's be reasonable, honestly. These are not reasonable. And we need to take a stand, and we need to be assertive, and we need to take a stand as New Hartford, as we always have been, with dimensions of learning, DOL, everything that we've done. New Hartford has always been at the forefront of everything. And this is a time that we need to take a stand and say, you know what, State Ed, we're not abiding by this, because what you're asking us to do is unacceptable for our children. So thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to address? I would like to speak. And I tried to prepare something. My name is Sue Niever. I am a teacher at New Hartford. I am a mother of 4 and a graduate of New Hartford. And one of the things that I was very proud of is that I did graduate from New Hartford, and I had some of the best teachers. They inspired me to want to become a teacher. I played teacher every day after school because I wasn't sick of school. I really liked it, and I wanted to come home and teach all my babies how to write and read. And that's why I got into education. I loved it, and I did have some of the best teachers. I wasn't going to point you out, but you're here, Louise wasn't mine. I just worked with her. I worked with some of the best people, and I still do. New Hartford has always been where I wanted to come back to, because I loved my experiences here. I loved the education I received. I felt very prepared for college. So I always felt like New Hartford was not broken. We have produced so many incredible people of this district in every area. So I felt like I am having a hard time, because when Common Core, we talked about it, it's like, yes, they're raising the standards. They want kids to think critically. Great. I support that. It is so important for them to be able to do that. But the way that it's coming out, and especially for my young kids, I'm really struggling with that. Watching my almost 7 and 8-year-old struggle through curriculum that they still do well on. They get their 4s and they come home and they are happy, but if they get a 1, they say to me, I think I might be held back. I've never talked about retention to my kids. They don't know anything about it, because that would never be something that I would think that they would be concerned with. So somehow they get this themselves, and I know they're teachers who are amazing, wonderful, nurturing people who strive every single day in that classroom with them. I know they don't say that to them either. So I don't know where they get this. We talk about stress levels, and
I look at my first two children. My oldest is a junior at in New Hartford, and my second oldest. I have a whole bunch of them. Sometimes it feels that way. The second oldest is in 9th grade, and I feel like their primary years here were the greatest. Every day I had a new piece of artwork, and they had something exciting to tell me at the table. And we would talk about what they learned, and they would be excited, and not just excited because they didn't have a test that day, but excited because they learned something and they wanted to share what they learned. But they don't really do that. My youngest two don't do that with me anymore because I don't feel like I don't even know if they know that they're learning something because they're just going through some motions, and they have learned to read, and they read to me. And one of the things that actually made me very sad is that my youngest daughter, who loves to read, she has bookshelves of books, and she loves to read to me, but now I have to take a test every time she reads to me. She's like, you have to fill out a test. Of course, it's much like other tests. It's not really appropriate because it's a spelling test, and I didn't get to read the book. I'm tested on spelling words that I didn't get to see yet. But she also, I hear her up in her room, she loves to teach people things. She's teaching her babies, but she also gives them a test at the end of it. And that's disheartening to me. She's not talking about the pictures, and she's not talking about the stories or anything else. It is, here's your test, and you got a 4 or you got a 3 or 2. They really are aware of scores that I don't want them to be aware of. I had an experience with my son, Jack, and he had not performed well on a test, and I was like, okay, well, let's take a look at it. And I looked at the test, and our district was very responsive to that. So I said, I think you may have run out of steam. This kid is 8 years old. He can't sit still in my house for 10 minutes, let alone, take tests for 30 minutes. Even if you break them down over several different increments, it's still a lot for him to sit still. This kid probably won't sit still again. Well, I don't even know if he'll make it into when he's got into junior high, if he can sit for those 40 minutes. They are good, smart kids, and they are still as smart as they were before Common Core, and they're still going to be just as smart if Common Core went away. They would develop at the age appropriate levels. They would also be more passionate about their education. I am finding now that I have 2 children who don't necessarily want to go to school. They're looking for reasons to not go. And I know we had a lot of illnesses, so I really wasn't sure if everybody who was sick, which day. But 3 days in a row, my son asked, I think I have a stomach ache again. And I said, I don't think you do. I think you're okay. And he said, well, Tyler's got one. And I said, yeah, but you already had yours. Yours is all gone. And I know he wasn't sick. He just didn't want to go. And on Friday mornings, both of them say to me, is it Friday? And I said, it's Friday. Ugh, I hate Fridays. Mm-hmm. Why do you hate Fridays? It's only math and testing. And I loved Fridays. I remember having fun in school on Fridays. Those were days to look forward to. Yeah, maybe we'd have a test here and there, but we also had a lot of fun. And then the weekend was after that, so that was amazing. So it bothers me to see them change this way, because this is not the experience my older 2 had. And I have 2 very strong students, the older ones, and we have great curriculum at the higher levels. All of our AP classes, we have creative writing, we have these great places for them to go off in their different ways, and they really are very different, and they're going to do a lot of different things. Math is not one strong point, the other one is going to be just fine there. My concern too is watching my little ones, wondering what's going to happen if because Common Core, just the standards themselves and what they want, the 70% nonfiction in the kids' curriculum, and the focus on math, I'm really nervous that they're going to miss out on all of those other opportunities. The science. Reading a nonfiction piece in science is not teaching science. That is exposing them to some ideas, but it's not really getting into science. It's not giving them those real experiences to get curious, I think. I remember my little ones attending a nursery school that they did this little science thing, and every day I learned something new from them. I'm not hearing anything from my little ones about anything to do with science and very little to do with social studies. They might tell me about a planet or something, but it's part of their reading. It's not part of an actual curriculum that they're experiencing. And I'm concerned because I want to know what's going to happen in our junior high for those kids. Are they going to be ready for our science and social studies when they get up to the higher levels? So I am concerned. I have never been an advocate of a standardized test. I always said, I just don't feel it measures a child, whether it be for my own child or my own student. I try to say it's not a big deal, it's just a day in your life. But this is 3 days now in the lives of my students. 1 week, 3 days in another week. Not to mention, we do have to prep them. I have to. I don't want them to go in cold not knowing or not seeing something. They need to know what to expect. But what I can tell you they're supposed to be expecting this year, I hate that I have to let them sit through it, because what I saw was the breakdown, and what we were told is that there was going to be 42 multiple choice answers, 90 minutes to do it. I think last year's reading passages were pretty lengthy and very challenging vocab, which is fine. If kids are given time to work through things, but in 90 minutes, I bet most of my kids will only have about 30 seconds to answer some of these questions, and there's going to be a plausible answer and a right answer. And that to me just doesn't sound like sound testing to them. No. So the next few weeks, so as a teacher, this prepping for a test and trying to help them so that they're ready, that bothers me. Because I just feel like they're stressed right now. I know my students are stressed. Testing. And I can tell them all I want. You don't need to worry about your score. It has no impact on who you are going to become in the future. This is just one day in your life. They don't buy it. Mm-hmm. They're not buying it. Because the other thing is they're pleasers. They want to do the best for their parents. They want to do their best for the teachers. They want to do their best for themselves. And when they get that score back, that is very disheartening to them. So, granted, they won't get their scores until like October of next year, and so I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that. Or maybe it'll be a little earlier if they're taking their test early. But my concern, that is my big concern, is that Common Core, with the stress of what the test actually said last year, some of my best students could not finish it. Common Core says you need to teach close reading, because we're trying to teach them to be, think about what you're reading, really think about it. You don't have time on that test to do that. You really don't. And then 2 other days they're reading 3 passages. I was told that there were 3 passages on one day, 800 to 1,000 words, 5 short response questions, and an essay in 90 minutes. So I had to ask my students, I'm like, all right, let me explain to you. You are going to take this test in 2 different ways, because you have to watch your time. Time is of essence in order for you to complete this. So they said, are you teaching us good writing? I said, I'm teaching you test writing right now. Because if it's about the score, and that's what I'm supposed to get you to, and that's what you need to do on that test, but then we want to forget all of that when we go back to let's write some poetry and let's write some essays that we really can think about and we can really write. But last year I had kids who did not finish. Some of my very best students were in tears because they didn't finish. And I fear that even though the state said they were going to cut back, from the breakdown I saw and what I was told recently from a meeting, is that it doesn't look like it's changing. So it really bothers me as a teacher, as an educator, that I have to compromise what I know to be good for kids in order to prep them for this test. So that is one of my big concerns about this. I guess what I'm asking is to really take a look at what Common Core is doing to all of our kids, and what this testing, and what can we say to the state to say, listen, New Hartford has been doing it right all along. We have the best teachers, we have the best administrators, we have the best support staff, we have the best parents, and we have great kids that are coming out here every single day, every single year. And it's been the truth forever. From back in '88 when I graduated. See, I'm not quite as old. So I feel like, and even before then, I know, but I'm just saying, as far as I've ever known, that's what I've known New Hartford to be, and I want it to stay that way. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the board?
I'd like to speak. I've been an educator for 21 years in New Hartford, and I've been fortunate enough to work with many wonderful professionals. I've been a social studies teacher, a kindergarten teacher, a 4th grade teacher, a 5th grade teacher. taught at the junior high. I've pretty much done the whole gamut. The last 13 years, I've been a reading specialist at Miles. And I have felt the trickle down, even as a specialist trying to motivate my students. I'm all like, very much like Tom with examples, and I could cite so many, but the two most recent happened about a week ago, and I shared it with my colleagues. I was being observed, and it was sort of an unannounced. I sort of knew it was coming that week, but she just said, is this good right now? And she came in. It was all fine. I was doing a lesson on author's purpose, and I was trying to teach the kids that authors have different purposes for reading, or for writing their pieces. And I was talking about to entertain, and I was giving them all these different fun ones. And then I was talking about how there's to inform, and a how-to, and to persuade or convince, and showing them all the reasons. And then all of a sudden, they just had it. They were getting it, they were comfortable. Anything I showed them from any book, I would pick up a book and I would just open it, and they'd say, to inform, to entertain, that must be, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, to entertain, they know that one. And all of a sudden, I said, okay guys, before you leave, I want to, if I showed you something like science or a social studies term, I said, what would it be if you were reading a science piece? And then they were sort of quiet at first, and they're ready to answer. I go, give me a science term. Give me a science term that you could refer to that you just taught. There was dead silence, and this is such an enthusiastic group that there's a major participation with this group, and they're always happy, and they're all dominating for, to get in, and they were silent. And I said, okay, give me a social studies term. And the kids looked at me and they said, we haven't done social studies in a while. And then I said, okay, then give me a science term. We haven't done science either. This really happened. I mean, I'm being observed, and I'm thinking maybe that will be in the notes. And so anyway, it sort of went ping pong. One little girl said, we haven't done science in a while. The little boy said, we didn't do social studies in a while. I went back to the little girl, and she goes, yeah, it's been like a long time. And I thought to myself, how sad that they can't come up with like food chain, or something that some type of science term, or some type of social studies, community, something that you're studying. And so I said, okay, well, if you've done science or social studies recently, you'd know that was to inform. And that really disheartened me, because I thought, my daughter loves science, and she's in 10th grade in New Hartford. And my son is entering kindergarten next year, so I worry about him, because he goes to a preschool that is very centered around learning. Their constructivism, they do science and social studies every day. I can't even tell you, like, as each day passes, how I get so nervous. I mean, I'm actually nervous for that spark in him to go out. And I have some of the students here of parents that spoke. And I do know some of these kids, so that's why I got a little emotional earlier, because I know some, just like Sue was saying, that they will not finish because of the time constraints on this test, but yet they can get good scores. I think about these kids, and then I think about how, like Tom was saying, how we have bought into these programs. And I've followed Richard Allington, and I really believe in Richard Allington, and he's done so much thorough research on reading. And everything that I read, and every time he speaks, it's like everyone just looks at him as the guru of reading and researching. He said, anytime you buy into a boxed program, whether it be for math, whether it be for reading, shame on you. He said, you should be getting books, authentic, beautiful books to teach these kids. And they should be loving these books. And when I see that element in school of silent reading, sustained silent reading, or just being able to have that time to read, to the students being cut out because of the double math, or whatever it may be, it's very disheartening, because the kids should love books, and that should be their go-to. And they should be on the shelves, and they should be encouraged, and centers, and the constructivist approach where